My family thought I was wasting my life when I left for college. They didn't know that when I came home, 5 years would have passed for everyone except me. I think the strangest part about everything that happened is that my last normal day felt completely ordinary. There was no warning, no sign that something impossible was about to happen, and no moment where I looked around and thought, something is wrong. I was just a 19-year-old kid leaving home for the first time, excited to finally get away from a family that never really understood me. My parents weren't cruel people, but I always felt like I was the kid they didn't know what to do with. My older brother was everything they wanted. He played sports, had a clear career path, and never questioned anything. I was the opposite. I spent most of my time reading, building things, and obsessing over physics and theories that my family thought were pointless. The night before my flight, we were eating dinner when my brother looked at the acceptance letter sitting on the counter and laughed. "So you're actually going through with this?" I looked up from my plate. "Going through with what?" "Moving across the country to study something that might not even get you a job?" My mom immediately looked uncomfortable. "Can we not do this tonight?" But my brother kept going. "I'm just saying most people pick something practical." I put my fork down. "You mean something you would pick?" He shrugged. "I'm just being realistic." The funny thing is, those words stuck with me for years. Not because he was right, but because I spent so much time trying to prove him wrong. My dad finally spoke up. "Your brother could be nicer about it, but he does have a point. College isn't cheap." "I know that," I said. "I've thought about this." My mom looked at me. "We just don't want you to struggle." I wanted to believe that was the reason. Maybe it was. But after years of feeling like the odd one out, it was hard not to hear it as another person telling me I wasn't making the right choices. The only people who were actually excited for me were my friends. Jake, Marcus, and Ethan had been my closest friends since middle school. They were the kind of friends who could insult you for 5 minutes straight and then show up at your house at midnight if you needed help. The 4 of us were all going to different colleges in the same state, so we planned our flight together. When I got to the airport, Jake was already sitting near the entrance with 2 coffees in his hands. "You're late," he said. I looked at my watch. "I'm 10 minutes early." Exactly. Late compared to how early I wanted to be. Marcus grabbed one of the coffees from him. "You realize nobody asked you to become the airport manager, right?" Jake looked offended. "I'm keeping this group alive." Ethan walked up carrying his backpack. "You're the reason we almost missed our flight last year, because you wanted to find a specific restaurant. It was a good restaurant. It was closed. That doesn't mean it wasn't good." I laughed for the first time that morning. Being around them reminded me that leaving home wasn't only about escaping something. It was also about starting something new. At the check-in counter, the employee scanned our tickets and smiled. "First year of college?" "Is it that obvious?" Jake asked. She laughed. "You all have that same look." "What look?" "The look where you're excited but also realizing your parents aren't there to fix everything anymore." Marcus pointed at me. "That's definitely him." I rolled my eyes. The employee handed us our boarding passes. "Enjoy the flight." I remember that because it was such a normal interaction. She was just another person doing her job. She had no idea she was one of the last strangers we would ever talk to before our lives completely changed. The flight itself started normally. We joked around, argued about movies, and spent the first hour pretending we weren't nervous about starting a completely different life. Jake looked over at me while we were flying. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "Your family is going to miss you." I laughed. "No, they won't." "Yes, they will. You don't know my family." Jake looked out the window. People don't always realize what they have until it's gone. At the time, I thought he was just saying something random. Years later, I realized he was right. About halfway through the flight, something strange happened. I woke up because the cabin suddenly got quiet. Not normal airplane quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone seems to notice something at the same time. I looked around. A few passengers were staring out the windows. Marcus noticed too. "Why does everyone look confused?" Jake leaned toward the window. "Did anyone else see that?" See what? Ethan asked. Jake pointed outside. I don't know, just something. I looked out, but all I saw was darkness and clouds. What was it? I don't know. He laughed nervously. Maybe I'm tired. None of us thought much about it. A few hours later, the pilot came over the speakers. Passengers, we will be beginning our descent shortly. Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened. Everyone started grabbing their bags and waking up. I remember looking out the window as the ground got closer. The airport looked different than I expected. There were vehicles everywhere. Not just airport vehicles, black SUVs, military trucks, people standing around the runway. Marcus leaned across me. Is that normal? I shook my head. No. Jake tried to joke. Maybe they heard about my restaurant opinions and sent security. Nobody laughed. Because even the flight attendants looked nervous. One of them kept looking toward the front of the plane. Another whispered something to a coworker. When we finally stopped at the gate, nobody moved. Usually everyone immediately stands up and starts grabbing bags. This time, everyone just waited. Then the door opened. But it wasn't an airport employee standing there. It was a man wearing a dark jacket, holding an FBI badge. And the first thing he said was something that made every person on that plane forget about their luggage. Nobody leaves this aircraft until we have spoken with everyone. A man near the front stood up. Why? What's going on? The agent looked around the cabin. Then he asked the question that would change our lives forever. What year do you believe it is? And at first, everyone laughed, because nobody understood why an FBI agent was asking us something that ridiculous. But he didn't smile. And slowly, the laughter stopped.